All right, let's talk about Scotland's map police. Now, to begin this segment, I don't actually think the Scottish police are trying to normalise maps, which we'll explain what those are in a minute. What they are is really stupid. Total and utter midwits. Now, I would put money, I don't know whether the tests have been done, but I would put money on the fact that the average IQ in the Scottish Police Service is about 95. Right? So that's actually lower than the average population in Scotland, which is 97.
Is that higher than the Irish?
It is higher than the Irish. We looked this up, it was 92. But I'm going to guess it's just they're really, really stupid. Right, and so they're in this very left-wing environment because for some reason Scottish people vote for the SNP, and the Scottish police are just kind of lost and alone, and they don't know what they're doing. Right, so I'm not ascribing malicious intent to the Scots on this; they're just moronic, which I think is a perfectly reasonable sort of Hanlon's razor excuse to not have to condemn the entire Scottish policing establishment. I don't want to.
I mean, almost. I mean, but like the ideological actors who, poison the police service into accepting Rotherham.
They're not stupid. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the most of the police officers there are probably also just stupid.
Yes.
But I don't think it's untrue to say that this is normalising it.
Well, we'll get to it because it is being normalised, but the Scottish police, like I said, they're not the ones trying to normalise it. They're just stupid and taking the lead of other people.
Dumbass vessels who don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But isn't this inclusive and diverse?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? The entire philosophy comes from this extremely left-wing position, which is why, if you want to support us, go over to lotus.com and you can listen to, if you have a silver subscription, my Deep Think number 10, which is on Rousseau's Savage, because that is frankly, the origin point of all of these problems is the idea that, in fact, the person is not responsible for their own sort of moral tastes and the way that they are. No, society has made them bad. And this is why the left is constantly trying to find a way to destigmatize and then normalize people who are attracted to children. Right. So we'll begin with just examples of this, because there are plenty of examples of this. You may remember Alan Walker.
Mm-hmm.
The professor where were they professor of? Sorry, I do have this written down. Although I can't seem to find it now, that I do have it written down.
I love Rainbow Institution.
Yes,
Sure.
But they were actively trying to... There was a professor who's actively trying... A trans professor who's actively trying to destigmatize paedophilia by, as you can see by their presentation there, understanding resilience strategies among minor attracted individuals, or otherwise known as MAPS, minor attracted persons.
Or nonsense.
Yes, nonsense is the common term. And this was something of a controversy last year. As the Daily Caller reported, their book, A Long Dark Shadow, Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity.
I just want dignity.
Just want dignity.
Stop erasing us.
Map visibility.
I'm going to keep erasing.
Yeah. No. Which challenges widespread assumptions that persons who are preferentially attracted to minors, often referred to as paedophiles, are necessarily also predators or sex offenders. They're just contingently predators and sex offenders. The book looks at the lives of non-offending minor attracted persons, MAPS, a term that is used to describe the group because it is less stigmatizing than a word like paedophile. But this is the old Ricky Gervais thing with Scope, isn't it? Like, he's got this great... It's old now, actually, but whatever you call the thing that people don't like will become the stigmatizing term. So it's like, people call them paedophiles. Oh, I have to call them MAPS then. Okay, well, they just call them MAPS, and that will take on the same meaning, idiots. But he said, who knows what gender I'm talking about here, but Walker said in an interview with the Prostasia Foundation, a non-profit that focuses on child protection, along with an evidence-based approach to child sex abuse prevention, according to its website. So we need to destigmatize these people to save children. Big doubt. Walker said that abuse should not be tolerated. Oh, thank God. Thank God.
It should not be tolerated but normalised.
Argued that there is a distinction between sexual attraction and acting on that attraction. People attracted to minors are universally maligned, and the stigma surrounding MAPS is the problem.
Yeah, it's the same with people who just love raping women. I don't know.
The stigma surrounding MAPS is a problem. For who?
The maps.
Yeah.
Pedos.
Yeah.
Well, like local rapist keeps complaining that nobody likes him talking about how much he loved raping.
Am I not a man? So they think that therapeutic intervention to get rid of MAPS attraction is not really an option. I think it might be. I think literally like doing something to stop them from being attracted to children is something that we can
Launching
do.
them into space, but not with a child on board.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen. But affirming therapy can help with strategies for non-offending. Very interesting. So the university had to put out a statement about this. Oh, Old Dominion University, there we go. What I love about the statement, because they agreed that this professor is going to go on leave, right? And they say this, quote, "I want to state in the strongest terms possible that child sexual abuse is morally wrong and has no place in our society," said the president of the university, Brian O'Hemphill.
As he's writing that, why do I have to write this?
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have to write that. But
I disagree with raping children at this university. I know not all universities agree.
But the one good thing about when this subject has to come up is that everyone becomes hyper conservative about it, and it's like, good. That's good. That's good. That shows that underneath all of the woke progressive BS, there is the hyper conservative layer that knows actually no, it is wrong and it goes into the wrong place. You know, this wasn't right. And so the only redeeming quality is that it can actually get a bunch of left-wing professors to admit that they think that child sexual abuse is morally wrong. Or they're lying to us, of course. This professor was, of course, they weren't fired, but they agreed to resign. Which is really sus, isn't it? It's like, why don't you fire them then?
Yeah, I don't.
No, we can't fire them, but they're going to agree to resign.
I don't want to go through any kind of like slight discomfort and
Yeah.
maybe path of resistance in the slightest to get rid of a pedo.
Yeah.
I don't have any balls. It's like, what?
Well, we don't know that
Get on
person's
with it.
we don't know that person's a pedo. They just, for some reason, craft their entire academic career around defending pedophiles. I don't know why. Anyway,
Who knows?
Alan Walker was hired by the John Hopkins Center.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Okay.
he, she, who knows?
Well, hang on. So the one who's like, I want to talk about whether or not we should legalize raping kids. John Hopkins are like, we'll hire you.
No. They didn't say they want to legalize raping kids. Come on,
No,
let's be fair. They just said they wanted to destigmatize paedophilia. I don't know why.
Not to legalize it, of course.
Not to legalize it. No, that's not the first step on the road to legalization or anything. It's just, I don't even know what their argument is, actually, and I don't really want to know. But no, Walker is a leader in the field of perpetration prevention research, which is essential for developing a comprehensive public health approach to addressing child sexual abuse and effective prevention programs. Trust me, bro. Anyway, moving on. There is a professor who will simply take the mask off, which is Dr. James Cantor, who will say, look, you can see here, being gay was also stigmatized once. That's why I think he and all the other stigmatized sexualities people are born with, as if people are born with their sexualities. Do we know this? Do we know that they're not habituated into them, right? But it does belong in GLBTQ2QA+. So
What the hell has happened there?
who knows? But all else is hypocrisy. Allying with the already popular isn't liberalism. Right, there we go. Thank you, Dr. Cantor, for taking the mask off and saying, look, right, we are for stigmatized sexualities regardless of the content of the sexuality.
Regardless of the moral questions.
Regardless of the question of consent. Because it was all predicated on two people who are adults consenting. Who cares? Yeah, okay, I totally agree. But now you've got one person who can't consent. Okay, but we need to add the P onto the LGBTQ.
Gay people were stigmatized once, and so was having sex with horses.
Exactly.
So what we must do is stand with the horse community.
It's not the question of consent. It's not the question of righteousness. It's the question of who is being stigmatized.
All forms of sex, regardless of how criminal.
Well, that's the thing. Eventually, does it get to the rapist community? They're just stigmatized.
It is a fantasy. I mean, that is a thing. I don't know if the men
I'm just saying it gets. He is right that the MAPS are a persecuted and stigmatized group, and of course the left's natural gravitation towards, well, if they're being persecuted, it must be society's fault that they're being persecuted. They were just born this way.
It isn't real liberalism unless we're glorifying rapists.
Yeah, but this is the point. I'm not sure that if someone is inherently born a paedophile. I think that this is a product of a certain kind of upbringing. but that's something I won't go into now, right? So anyway, you can find on it's a
No, I just
long
the first
conversation.
comment. The first comment. Don't read it. Can't read it. Can't read that out loud.
Yeah.
And I think officially we have to disavow, but it's
Yes. But again, he doesn't. He's just being honest about where LGBTQ is going, because it does go in this direction. And you can do a search on Google Scholar to find that this is not in any way unusual. This is just a Google Scholar search for minor attracted persons. But just scroll down there, John.
cited by 9, cited by 9, cited by 13, cited by 20 papers.
Yeah. There's just...
So 4, 3, 1.
There's loads of these. This is only page 1.
And then they've got their peers citing them as well. That's
Yeah.
All right.
And so, moving on to the woke British police, how does this dovetail together? Well, as you're constantly showing, they are LGBTQ allies.
But they're morons. Yeah, I think you've got them here.
Yes.
I mean, this video is actually fantastic. Like, you can clearly tell she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes.
And then you can also count the number of rainbows.
Yes.
So is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I think 6?
There's one in the crown at the back.
Ah, crap, 7. All right, there we are.
Literally, there's a rainbow in the crown at the back. God. Yeah. So yes, the British police
This means I'm an ally.
are not terribly academic, shall we say, right? And they're very in favour of intersectionality. We go to the next one. They've got nice furry pride worldwide.
Hello, police force.
Let's get to the next one, which is just policing with pride. They're
Yeah, the
very,
Riot Shield.
very LGBTQ friendly.
Yeah, in fact, I'll beat you if you're not.
And we go to the next one. You can see they're saluting the pride flag.
Mm-hmm. 6 police here. Raising the...
The racial pride flag. Not,
yeah.
not even the conservative pride flag.
And then you've got people stood behind it. You see it's on their chest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's deeply embarrassing. But so if we take these two lines of thought, you've got the left who will admit, yes, we need to eventually put P on the end of LGBTQ, and the police who are like, yes, we're fully in favour of LGBTQ, you can see how this will eventually intersect with police in Scotland using the term map. This was inevitable.
I don't think it's even stoppable.
No,
If the police continue, because the thing is, like, minoritarian empire or society or whatever the hell we're living in, like, they will continue pushing this gate. If it doesn't get pushed past this time and becomes the common parlance, the nomenclature of the police,
you're
it
bothered
will
about
by
it,
10 years.
You're bothered about it now because it's newsworthy, but when they've done this enough times and it's no longer newsworthy, it'll just carry on.
I do love the turf accounts who keep retweeting whatever, when it just, like, the NHS mentions people with vaginas or people with penises or some crap like that.
What's that
It's
mean?
like, this isn't normal. Yeah. Remember, this isn't normal.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah.
So anyway, a controversial move to label paedophiles as minor attracted people and a top-level report has been defended by Police Scotland. Okay, they actually didn't. They kind of defended it. Again, I want to be charitable because it's such a gross subject, right? But the police force are like, oh yeah, it wasn't our fault. It was the EU. It's like, I thought Brexit meant Brexit, mate.
Scottish are like, we're rejoining.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly. Because
we want to do some things. Don't ask what. Okay, Police Scotland.
Chief Constable Ian Livingston's annual year-end report refers to child abusers as minor attracted people. This move comes amid wider concerns as campaigners over what they say is a brand's attempts to rebrand paedophilia as a harmless sexual preference.
I feel like this is the Babylon. You know, the official logo, the layout's professional. All that.
Go back, John. Go back. We're not to there yet because I want to explore this a little bit more, right? So a spokesman for the force stressed that MAPS is not a term they routinely use to describe child abusers, and said
only when you're not listening.
In the report it had to be understood in its context, and I agree, context is important. So it is.
And in what context is this going to be?
Well, exactly, right? So he explained that no, look, the reference to MAPS was in relation to the force's engagement with the European Union's Horizon Europe project, prevention of child sexual exploitation. It's like, right, so it's from the EU. Right.
That doesn't help at all.
Exactly. I thought we had left the EU. Brexit meant no nonsense from the EU.
But even then, like, whatever, you still got some layovers in policing across the continent, right? And the EU side of the debate turns up with something trying to, using language, normalising nonsense.
Yeah.
And Police Scotland, what you should do at the negotiation table is buy.
Well, that's
like, you don't use their materials.
They did kind of do that in their defence, right? But the report states the project's main agenda is to develop an understanding and approach to avoid the victimisation of children by engaging minor attracted people and providing them with the necessary support, treatment and guidance to help prevent criminal activities. Of course they're using EU woke academic language, but of course they're adopting the European perspective that society is what makes you wrong. That's not how we do it in Britain. In Britain, we have the total opposite position. Actually, society isn't so bad, and bad people are responsible for their own badness. That's how we view the world.
Which is why you put them in prison.
Yes.
Not re-education.
Exactly. That's why people like Foucault were arguing that, in fact, prisons are the last bastion of oppression. And then the average Englishman's like, yeah, that's a good thing.
That's kind of the point, dummy.
And then he went off to Tunisia for a while, for no reason we can talk about. Anyway, the police spokesman said, Police Scotland does not use this term. Honest governor. The reference to the Chief Constable's assessment of policing performance in 2021-22 was in the context of their engagement with this project. The term was used in commissioning documents for the consortium and is more commonly used on the continent. I know.
I don't buy it.
Oh, I believe that it's definitely more commonly used on the continent.
Oh, yeah, I don't buy that they don't use the term. Like, I'm willing to put a bounty on people in the Police Scotland. Just go find some documents using it and release them to the public.
I wonder how many of Police Scotland voted Remain.
I'm just saying, this is never true. Trust me.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably the case. But in September, police representatives successfully lobbied for the MAP term not to be used by the consortium.
Why did you have a conversation about that?
But no, fair enough. But you shouldn't be using any of their terms at all. Because as James Cantor has pointed out to us, oh no, the P is inevitable. LGBTQP. This is where this goes.
Plus.
And so, plus, exactly.
Don't forget bestiality. That's
oh, well,
just
yeah.
valid.
Who knows what brave new frontiers of liberation.
Trying to erase their existence. Are you trying to commit bestiality genocide, Carl?
I'm definitely trying to erase bestiality. I don't think that's something that should be normalised.
Sorry, Cenk.
That was such a weird hill to die on.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that.
But again, it was years ago. He was just being edgy online, fair enough.
I know, but he's never going to get over it.
No. But he said, be on notice that you shouldn't be using their terms at all, though, right? That's what I'm trying to say. If the P on LGBT was too much, well, why are the other ones okay? We have our own terminology.
What the hell do these have to do with each other as well?
Well, yeah, obviously, but the entire thing is a kind of villainous way of reframing what the world is actually like from our perspective into a way of saying that, look, no one is responsible for anything that they do. That's what it ultimately boils down to. The very bedrock of this is no, the world around them is wrong. That person did nothing wrong. It's like, no, sorry, that person did do something wrong. They made a conscious choice to commit a crime or to cultivate a particular habit or something like that. That's how I think of this. And so we shouldn't be using their terms at all. And so maybe Police Scotland can start winding all of that back. Because again, it's not like we don't have terms for the things they're trying to describe. Just use our terms, not theirs. But anyway, I love this. The term MAP is contentious because child abusers are trying to escape the stigma attached to paedophilia and maintain they should be regarded as a niche group alongside the LGBT community. That's true.
The burglar community as well.
Yeah.
I think are trying to remove the stigma from their livelihood.
Yeah.
I think it's redistribution officers.
Honestly, I would much rather destigmatize burglary than this.
That's true as well. We're going to go through the list. I mean, I think of a few.
Well, I can't believe Police Scotland were like, okay, we'll just call them burglars. But the maps, where are your priorities?
I do love. You ever watch Life on Mars?
No.
A TV series. So it's a guy who goes back. He's in London in the 2000s. He's bored. And it's all bureaucratic BS, policery nonsense. Anyway, and then he travels back, and he's in. I think it's. I can't remember now. Some northern place where it's the 1960s or 70s.
Yeah.
And policing's just so much better.
I bet it is.
I mean, one of the main things that struck me is the gov in charge of the station in their unit. He calls everyone they lock up villains.
True.
They would never do that now, of course. It's just suspect, and it's all sanitized language.
John's like burglars and how PAP, property attracted people. Well, no, I'm a property attracted person. I'm just not a thief. Anyway.
Learn more and more about you.
Well, I like my property. Anyway.
Didn't know you were part of the alphabet community.
Yeah, good point. I'm not. Anyway, the police in Scotland put out a statement about this, as you feel they have to, obviously, where they basically reiterate what was said in that article. We don't use that term to describe any type of offender, and suggestion otherwise completely misrepresents our position. So, right. But you should go further on this.
I'm just reminded of the ending of Life on Mars. I have to tell you, spoilers. He goes back to the future and then just decides to kill himself. Don't know why he did that.
But they again, just like the university, they're like, our view is that the term was entirely unacceptable in describing either someone involved against offending against children or has indecent thoughts towards them. Great, that's good.
Nonce.
But why?
I
do you
feel they
think
should, should be using slur words.
No, well, exactly. Why? Like, I know why I think it's bad, but tell me why you think it's bad. Because actually, I think that you maybe don't think it's so bad. You know? Actually, if you were to explain why, I think you're just like, oh, everyone's annoyed. Right, we think that's terrible. Why? Why do you think it's terrible? I can tell you why I think it's terrible, but I'm not going to because I want to hear why you think it's terrible. Because actually, I think you've just been caught, you know? There's a part of me that is deeply suspicious. And it's like, yeah, well, they use this all the time on the continent. Yeah, they do. I mean, we've covered this many a time, how on the continent, they have a weird lack of respect for the sanctity of children. The latest one is A Map's Tale.
What?
A new play titled A Map's Tale will premiere in, where do you think?
Scotland?
Germany.
No.
What city in Germany?
Berlin?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, really? Why?
What a surprise. Again, I just love how literally 100-year cycle is what the cycle of the West is, right? It's the cycle of
The
modernity.
Germans don't learn.
Every 100 years, in the 20s, it gets degenerate, and then bad things happen in the 30s and 40s.
What are the 1820s?
Well, this is pre-modern.
Oh, okay.
Like the 20th century onwards.
We've only had 2 goes at
It's
it.
going to be the cycle of modernity, man. I'm telling you, right? So this is premiering in February at Berlin's theatre. I can't pronounce it. That will tell the tale of Adam, a paedophile, in the story that the creators hope will expose the quote gross oversimplifications and criminal associations that currently shape our perception of all maps.
I remember when we were speaking with Chris Williamson after a podcast, and we were having dinner. He said one of the most extreme things he ever did for a podcast. He sat across from someone from like one of these groups who did a documentary about them. Like he wasn't a member of the group, but he did a documentary about them. And he was telling us about like, oh, but it's really complex because you have a situation where like all these people are now meeting, but it's good therapy. But then of course like they meet each other and then
I wonder what happens then.
yeah. And he said the worst example was there was a guy and a girl who met through the group and then ended up getting married and then wanting to have kids.
What?
Do you remember that?
Not offhand, but that sounds terrible.
And then the guy who's doing the documentary is like, what do you do, you know? And it's like, yeah, I don't know.
What?
I think
So
ban.
a male and female adult paedophile get together, fall in love,
Yeah.
and want to have children. It's like,
I think sterilization's probably in order.
but if they're
In-
in
with
love
the marriage license.
but if they find each other attractive, are they?
I don't know. Maybe it's like bisexuals or something.
Okay. So anyway,
I just mean multiple attractions. That's what I mean by that.
this is the problem with left wing philosophy. Who knows where it goes, right? But yeah. So this is not uncommon on the continent. Apparently, it's just
Damn Germans.
it's just the return to the Weimar years, as far as I can see. And the Scots are like, yeah, we wish we were part of the EU. What, the Map Pride EU? Oh no, not that EU. Oh yeah. Which EU were you thinking of?
Dumb Brexiters left the EU, isn't it great? Anyway, Matt Pride time.
As I said, Brexit means no nonsense, which means no EU.
I didn't realise it was so central.
Well, it is. It's so obviously central now. But anyway, that's that.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Epoch series we do, this one on the Battle of Kursk Part 2. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.